My great-grandfather was a carpenter down in a place pretty close to Macon, Georgia. And he had managed to build a two-story home. Took him years, but he did it, down in Georgia. It's the early 1900s. Not that far from the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, not far from the Emancipation Proclamation. But one day, the Klan thought that a black man had too much of a house.
Injustice anywhere, anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Intimate discussion with you today. And I'm going to tell you a story about me, my family particularly, that's germane to our discussion here. But first, let me do this. I want to read to you from perhaps the most important legislation Black America has ever known. So if you don't mind, let me read just a portion of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. In Section 1 of the 13th Amendment, it says, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. That's the 13th Amendment. If we take a look at the 15th Amendment, it says in Section 1, the rights of the citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. We all know what that means, don't we? Now, as important as the 13th Amendment is and the 15th Amendment is, it all hinges upon the 14th. In the 14th Amendment, we discuss who a citizen is. See, definitions matter. Listen to the 14th Amendment. If you want to find out who a citizen is in this country, here it is. It says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States, and of the states wherein they reside. No state, none, shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States of America. Citizenship, too long denied and not entirely embraced even now. It goes on to say, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. You see, without the definition of a person clearly defined, we don't even know who a citizen is. And if you're going to be honest, if you take a look back across our history, it's been our personhood that's been denied. That's why the Constitution can be in place, and yet there's slavery. That's why the Constitution can be in place, and yet there is Jim Crow. That's why the Constitution can still be in place, and yet there is segregation, separate but equal. Lord have mercy. The definition of person is perhaps the most important definition in the U.S. Constitution, the supreme law of the land. And this project is all about that. This project is about making it clear once and for all who a person is, so that all of us can benefit from the law that we live under, the U.S. Constitution. Now, quickly, let me tell you what.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
The tribes of Indians inhabiting this country were fierce savages whose occupation was war. In the opinion of this court, slaves and their descendants had no rights which the white man was bound to respect. The Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for his benefit.
It is better for all the world if society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough.
The word person does not include the unborn.
Over time, the personhood of all dehumanized groups has been legally recognized, except one. It's time to fulfill the vision of equality and justice set forth in the Declaration of Independence. It's time to recognize the personhood of preborn children.
Clearly see that the definition of personhood needs to include every single body. Let me tell you why it's so important to me and why I got started on this. You know, on my daddy's side, we're from Mississippi. Anybody here from Mississippi? Anybody down south? Okay, I got a couple. Georgia. Okay, well, good. Okay. Florida, I hear you. Okay, well, you know where I'm going. And on my mama's side, we're from Georgia. From Georgia. You know, we had to migrate, so to speak, from the south to the north. But let me tell you a story about my family on my mama's side. My great-grandfather was a carpenter down in a place pretty close to Macon, Georgia. And he had managed to build a 2-story home. Took him years, but he did it. Down in Georgia. It's the early 1900s. Not that far from the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, not far from the Emancipation Proclamation. The Civil War just wasn't that old in the early 1900s. But one day, the Klan thought that a black man had too much of a house. And so one night, the Klan decided to ride up. And so they suited up. They put on the robes, they put on the hats, they lit their torches, they loaded their guns, and they rode up to my granddaddy's home. You gotta understand, there's 16 in the family. We had big families back then. You know what I'm talking about. I hear you. Now one night, and they waited till night, make sure everybody's in the home. They ran in and got my dad, granddad. And then they lynched me. I won't tell you what they did to my grandmother, because I'm in polite company. But they made her watch. Now there's 14 kids in the house. One of those kids is going to be my grandmother. Lord have mercy, they lit the house on fire, brother, with all the kids in the house. And the intent was to burn every last one of us alive. They surrounded the house to make sure that nobody could get out. And practically nobody did. The kids decided that the best they could do, with Daddy lynched and, well, just want to talk about grandmother, that they would hunker down and see if they could endure the flames. The plan was this: allow the house to burn, and as the flames got high, as the flames got hot, as the inferno burned on, the older would give their life for the younger. And so one by one, the folk in my family were burnt alive in their own home. It got down to the 7th one, Annie. Annie was the last of the oldest still living, and she was giving her life for the younger below her. And that night, the flame did get high enough. It got hot enough for the Klan to ride out. The Klan did ride out. And Annie, one by one, on fire herself, rescued her younger brothers and sisters. She rescued my grandma. One day, I'm gonna speed up, I'm in Detroit, and I wanna know, how we got from Georgia to Detroit. Well, that's how we got. That night, they ran all night, slept all day. We had to travel at night, brothers. And made their way to the north. So I found out how we got from the south to the north. I then asked, I said, well, why is my Annie all scarred up? Annie was a big woman, and her arms were all scarred, her legs were all scarred, and as a young boy, I wondered, well, why was she so scarred up? Annie couldn't read, she couldn't write, and when she went shopping, I don't know how she did, but she could figure how much it cost. She could do that. And the only book she could read that I know of was the Bible, and she'd read it to me. She could read that, but she couldn't read a newspaper. I said, why is Annie scarred up? Why does Annie look so bad? And they would never tell me until one night they did. They told me the same story I told you. And I said, well, where was the sheriff? Yeah. I said, where was the judge? Yeah. I said, well, why couldn't Annie go to a hospital? You see, after Annie rescued all of us out of the home, They had to take Annie back into the woods and bury her in the ground. They built a box, they put some lard in, and they put her in the lard in a box in the ground to keep her skin on her body. She couldn't go to a hospital because the blacks weren't allowed in the hospital. I said, well, why can't we go to the hospital? I said, why can't we get any justice? I said, what happened to the police? I said, what happened to the claim? They said, boy, you need to know one thing. And you might as well know it now. There used to be a time in America when we weren't recognized as people. Back in the day, we weren't people. We just weren't people. They said, boy, we weren't persons. The law didn't apply for us. Ladies and gentlemen, the most important legislation or effort today in America is to settle the definition of personhood once and for all. It even goes beyond 1800s. If you look at Article 1, Section 2, Paragraph 3, we're described as 3/5 of a person. Now, I know the arguments on both sides of it. Now, I got the history of it. But if you're the 3/5 of a person, the arguments don't mean much to you.
Right.
See, personhood is the key to everything. If we're going to make progress in this country for our people, if we're going to finally make some headway, if we're going to finally find some point that we can all rally around, regardless of where we are on the spectrum, personhood is it. We can do this. And what I'm going to ask you today, right now, is to get on with this, to join this, to be a part of this, to plug into this, to give it up your time, your talent, and your treasure. I want you to take a look at this clergy statement that we've got all in our packets. Is that everybody's got a handout?
Yep.
Let me read this to you. And at the end of this, I want you to take this card that's in your folder. I want you to sign it, and I want you to turn it in. I want us to get on board here. Let's go to work on this project. Listen to this statement. Clergy for the personhood of black preborn boys and girls. Here's our concern. In the black community of Rochester, 36% of all pregnancies end in abortion. Come on, fellas. Come on. Do you know that across the country, according to the Allen Gutmark Institute, this is Planned Parenthood's former research arm, or not so former research arm. This is Planned Parenthood's data. Black Americans account for over 30% of all abortions in the United States of America, and yet we're only 12, 13% of the entire population. I'm not going to even stop there. Do you realize that only half of us are women? So now we're looking at about 6% responsible for 30% of all abortions in the United States of America. And I'm still not done. If you're going to get real honest about it, and you're going to consider childbearing age, we're looking at age between 14 and 44. Now we're talking about 3% responsible for this 30%, responsible for this 36% in Rochester. It's a Holocaust. It's a genocide. And in Rochester, you're above the average. All pregnancies in our neighborhood, 36% end in abortion. In the last 10 years alone, the fertility rate in the black community has dropped 0.25%. The black population is no longer replacing itself, and this isn't the first time. The first time I actually got a chance to see it in the U.S. Census was the 2006 U.S. Census, and the population fertility rate, replacement level was 2.1, and the black population dropped down to 1.9. We were no longer replacing ourselves even then. It says, a person, listen to this definition. A person is an organism with a unique human DNA governing his or her own maturation from conception to natural death. Every person bears the image of God. Any person, therefore, demands our utmost dignity, respect, and protection. Man, woman, boy, girl, from the womb to the tomb. That's personhood. That's everybody. The black community understands well what happens when a small group of people get to decide who is or who isn't, or decides to use a different definition of personhood. Slavery, death, we know what happens. Do you really want someone to decide who your baby, Lord have mercy, your baby's baby, whether that baby's a person or not, whether that little boy or little girl is a person or not? Lord. Abortion represents one small group of people deciding that boys and girls in the womb are not people. The black community has overcome the similar manipulative traps of past tyrants and can do so again in the face of abortion disguised as woman's rights. Let's face it, nobody has the right to do wrong. We're talking about personhood here. And that child inside mama is a person, and mama's pregnant with a child. This is our commitment. And get your cards ready. We, the leadership of the black community, recognize the personhood and dignity of every preborn boy and girl. We commit to leveraging our power and influence to teach, exhort, and to even rebuke our community to protect the personhood of all blacks. From conception to natural death, an attack on the dignity of one of the least of these children is an attack on the personhood of us all. My goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a card right here. I want you all to take it out. It's a card right here. I want you to take a minute with a pen and just fill it out. Just take a minute. And just fill it out right now. Just take a minute.
Can we sign it even if we're not a pastor?
Yes, you can. And gladly so. Everybody, just take a minute and fill it out. Now, when you finish the cards, we're going to collect them. You don't have to move. We're going to come to you and we're going to collect the cards. This is a project that's beyond politics. This is a project that's beyond, above and beyond the courtroom. This is about our culture. This is about our legacy. This is about our future. This is about a person. Let's get it right. Let's get it right. And so let's finish these cards. Let's get them turned in. Let's get them picked up. And then I'm going to let you enjoy your dinner. You sure? Yeah. All right. I've been told they're going to pick them up at the end. That's all right with me. Well, Ayesha, just pick them up now. Pick them up now. Get them now. Get them now. I'll get them now. But brothers, I want to personally thank you for taking the time to come to this luncheon, because luncheon is about you. It's about our partnership in this project. There's a whole lot more to come, and your involvement, your input, your feedback is going to be key. This is truly going to be a team effort. And I want you to know that if you invite me to come back again, I'll be happy to come. God bless you.
What is it? Is it merely to believe that every human being, every single human being has dignity and an incalculable value? What does it mean to really be pro-life? Is it a state of mind? Is it merely being brought to tears at the thought of an innocent child being disposed of like damaged property? What does it mean to be pro-life? Is it a commitment to activism? Is it merely going outside an abortionist's office, praying and providing counseling to young women? What does it mean to be pro-life? Is it a political question? Is it merely voting for the right candidate, picking the right judge, voting for the right party? Is it a religious question? Is it really going to church, worshiping the Lord, praying for aid and comfort for the needy? Is it a moral question? Is it merely to do what is right, to do what is written on our hearts and do it now? Is it a scientific question? Is it only about our understanding of human physiology, facts, and figures? What does it mean to be pro-life? Truly pro-life. To be pro-life means all of these things, and more. To be pro-life is not to give up, not lower our standards, and not settle for the protection of just some. Not be afraid of defeat, of the future, of death. To be pro-life means to live for others and get off the couch right now to bring the church to the streets, bring the streets to the polling place, and bring healing to our world. What does it mean to be pro-life today? Well, I can sum that up for you in just one word.